In this video, we discuss 4 changes coming to Social Security in 2024 that could have a big impact on you personally. Coming up next on Holy Schmidt.
Holy Schmidt!
In 2024, we're going to see a lot of change happening to Social Security. Many of these will be largely invisible, but there will be 4 changes that could affect you personally, whether you're in retirement or you're approaching retirement. This video will discuss what those changes are and how they might affect you. All right, let's get into it. Point one that you've probably already heard about, is that the cost of living adjustment will be going up 3.2% in 2024. This means if you receive, say, $1,000 in Social Security, that will go up to $1,032 in 2024. Now, some of you are saying, so what? Last year, the cost of living adjustment was 8.7%. Now it's down to a measly 3.2%. Well, let me ask you a trick question. Would you rather receive 8.7% or 3.2% in your Social Security cost of living adjustment? Most of you would say, Jeff, of course I'd rather have 8.7% because that's bigger than 3.2%. Think about the reason that you got an 8.7% increase. That's because prices went up 8.7%. So if you only received Social Security, then you were basically flat for 2023. But for most of you, you had other income than Social Security, and there's a very good chance that that income went down, not up. The S&P 500, for example, went down 18.1% in 2022, and the average age-based fund went down between 15 and 18% during the 2022 year. So if your other investments did poorly while prices were going up, even though you received an 8.7% increase in Social Security, net, you went down. Next is the wage cap, which is simply the amount of earnings subject to Social Security tax. When you have earnings from work, you contribute 6.2% to Social Security, and your employer contributes 6.2% to Social Security as well. This means for every $100 that you earn, $12.40 is paid into Social Security. Add a few zeros and this starts to become a big number. If you made $100,000, for example, your combined contribution, yours and your employer's, is $12,400 to Social Security. But there is a cap at which point you and your employer stop contributing to Social Security. In 2023, that was $160,200. In 2024, it's $168,600. Anything above $168,600 is no longer subject to Social Security tax. It's still subject to Medicare tax, but not Social Security tax. Now let's discuss bend points, which I call the great equalizer. Bend points uses something called the average indexed monthly earnings. And all that is your average earnings indexed to today's dollars over the last 35 years, your best 35 years. What is the average in today's dollars of all of those earnings? You take that number and you run it through the bend points, and that gives you your Social Security payment at full retirement age. If 2024 was the year that you reached full retirement age and you filed for Social Security in 2024, the SSA would give you 90% of the first $1,174 of average indexed monthly earnings, 32% of any amounts from $1,174 to $7,078 of average indexed monthly earnings, and 15% of any amount above $7,078 to the earnings cap. So if you earned an average of $14,000 per year in today's dollars over the last 38 years, which is, by the way, approximately the federal poverty line, this translates to an average indexed monthly earnings of $1,167. This would all fall under bend point number 1, and the recipient would receive 90% of the 1167, which is 1050.30. Now, it's a big percentage of historical earnings, but I think we can all agree that that's a very small Social Security payment. Now let's change the fact pattern. And instead of making $14,000 per year, you made $114,000 per year on average in today's dollars over the last 35 years. $114,000 per year equals $9,500 per month. You would receive 90% of the first $1,174. That's $1,056.60. You'd receive 32% of the amount between $1,174 and $7,078. That's $1,889.28. And you receive 15% of the difference between $9,500 and $7,078. That's $363.30. So your total payment at full retirement age would be $3,309.18. Even though you contributed the exact same percentage, 6.2% of your earnings, and your employer matched 6.2% of your earnings, for a total of 12.4% on your $114,000, you receive 34.83% of your average indexed monthly earnings, whereas the low-income earner gets 90%. Many people, maybe even most people, would say that this is entirely fair because Social Security is there for the most vulnerable, and those who are low-income earners their entire life going into retirement are far more vulnerable financially than big earners that have had 35 years of good earnings growth. Where people get into a debate is whether or not the cap should be lifted altogether and 15% reduced again to another tier, or even to zero. So continue to contribute, but have no payment in return for the excess contribution. Needless to say, this is a complex issue and it goes far beyond the scope of this video. Next, the earnings limit has gone from $21,240 to $22,320 for anyone who is not in their full retirement age year. Full retirement age, by the way, isn't a state of mind. It's a classification by the SSA, and it's between ages 66 and 67, depending on the year that you were born. So if you're under full retirement age, if this isn't your full retirement age year, then you can earn in 2024 up to $22,320 without having to give back any of your Social Security payment. For every $2 above that amount, you have to give back $1 to the SSA. If this is the calendar year that you reach full retirement age, but you haven't reached your birthday yet, then you can earn up to $59,520 in 2024. That's up from $56,520 in 2023, so it's $3,000 more. For every $3 you earn over this amount, you have to return $1 back to the Social Security Administration. Once you reach full retirement age, you can earn as much as you want, and you don't have to give any of your earnings back to the SSA. It's also worth noting that even though your payment is reduced if you're working and you exceed these thresholds, the SSA gives those back to you once you reach full retirement age in the form of a higher payment. Next is something called a work credit. I call it the ticket to the game. You need to have 40 quarters of employment to qualify for Social Security. In theory, you could work every other quarter for 20 years and still qualify for Social Security, but you do need to earn a certain minimum. In 2023, that minimum was $1,640 per quarter. In 2024, it's $1,730 per quarter. Now, here's an interesting point. No matter how much you earn, you never qualify for more than 4 quarters in any single year. But if you earn more than the minimum, $1,730 in 2024 times 4, once you reach that amount, you theoretically could stop working and you still get 4 quarters for the year. For example, if you earn $6,920 in a seasonal job that ran from, say, October 24th to December 24th, you would qualify for 4 quarters. $6,920 is $1,730 times 4. Even though you only worked 2 months, you get 4 quarters of credit for Social Security. This comes in handy if you are, say, a tax accountant who only works from January 1st to April 15th, but you earn a lot of money during that period of time. You qualify for 4 quarters if it's over $6,920 in 2024. Now let's talk about what happens if you stop working for a long period of time. This almost always is when someone stays home to raise a family. For most people, 40 quarterly credits is an easy target to hit, especially if you're working 30 or 40 years, given the low amount that you need to earn during that time. However, people take off of work, they go home, they raise a family for 10 or 15 or 20 years, even longer if they have multiple children, And sometimes they find themselves unexpectedly up against that 40 quarter limit with only a few years left to work. Sometimes they miss by 1 or 2 quarters simply because they're not paying attention. This is something to note if you're approaching retirement. Check with the SSA and see how many quarters of work you have registered, particularly if you stayed home to raise a family or did something else similar to that. Gang, the Social Security Trust is due to run out in 2034, 2035, depending on which calculation you look at. And we are in a politically charged environment. Overlay that with the fact that 2024 is an election year. I will be reporting on this channel what the different parties are talking about when it comes to Social Security. So make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications so that you get alerted the next time I post a video. I post once or twice a week. Also, if you like this video, check out that video on the pros and cons of taking Social Security at age 62, full retirement age, or age 70. This is Jeff Schmidt. Thanks for watching.